Thanks. So I can't really see you. I can just see that there's 22 people in here. And we will go forward with slides, and you can, and we will start with some housekeeping notes, maybe, or tech notes in the beginning. So you can enlarge the slides by double-clicking on them. So they will get bigger in your window, and you will still be able to see the participants. Also, different from the stage mode of Hopin, up to 10 people can actually participate via video. So you can just click the blue button, participate, and you will be, so to say, in a video seat and join the table. And you can also leave the video seat whenever you want, and thus open one of the 10 spots up for someone else. So much about this in the beginning. We will say some more words about this, about how to go about this technically. Stephen, please, I'm going to mute you because otherwise we're going to hear you typing. And there's also the chat on the right side. So if any one of you who's not on video, or also those who are on video, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat. So we will do it as you know already from the stage session. Yeah, I think so much about this. Also, Erica said earlier that if you have any problems, the refresh button works wonders apparently. So just refresh the page and Hopin will work better for you. Firefox and Chrome are apparently the browsers that are best supported by Hopin. So if you have any tech problems, try with one of those browsers. And please mute yourselves so we don't have echo or any other intervening sounds. Yeah. So if anybody else wants to join the table here, yeah, maybe as an introduction to the topic that we set up here, as many of you know and are affected yourselves due to the corona crisis, many think tanks are asking their staff to work from home for extended periods of time. Borders are closed, flights are canceled, whole nations are in lockdown, and fortunately, in this special situation, technology permits us to transfer offline meetings and conferences to online platforms as a way to keep doing our work. But as we all know and experience right now, it's not the same. It's not as seamless. It's just a different way of working, and all of us have to learn as we go. Also, political process has changed due to the corona crisis. So we have lots of summits being cancelled and political processes being slowed down because resources are drawn to the health sector right now. So many things are changing. Decision-making processes, parliaments have to discuss whether they can convene through video calls and take decisions online. So these are all very exciting times for political scientists in a way. But what we want to focus on in our session and in the next 90 minutes is what working remotely actually means for our work as think tanks. And we at DJP, and I actually forgot to introduce ourselves. So this is me, Claire. I'm heading the Impact and Innovation Lab at the German Council on Foreign Relations, and our director, Daniela Schwarzer, who's also joining us on this panel. And we think that, you know, the silver lining of this crisis, as any crisis, it's a driver for innovation, because all tools and skills acquired for digital collaboration right now in this phase will expand our toolbox for think tank work long term. And I think we're experiencing this right now already. So what we thought might be interesting for us to do now in this session is to share some experiences and maybe even some first lessons learned from going digital during COVID-19 from our experience at DJP, at the German Council on Foreign Relations. This is just one perspective, of course. We are very interested in learning more about how you've gone about this. We will also discuss which opportunities these digital ways of think tanking present compared to our usual ways of doing things. And on the way, also collect tips, tools, practices that hopefully help us to do our work remotely. And in the end, we would also like to see how this network can be of help throughout the crisis. What we will do is after this welcome, we will do an introduction round, and I'm very curious how this will work in this setting where we only see half of you. But we will ask you to present yourselves shortly and which effect the current corona crisis has on your work, both positively and negatively. We will share some lessons learned from the past 2 weeks, because for us it's been 2.5 weeks now that we've all worked from home at DJP. And we will collect solutions, tips, and tools and see what are the next steps for you and for the network. So very glad to have you all on board here for now. Housekeeping notes, I said some of these things already in the beginning. There are 10 people on video, others are in chat. You can ask questions in the chat. You can leave the video seat whenever you want, but right now I think they're not even all filled, so we are very happy to have more people volunteer and come on stage. You can enlarge the slides by double-clicking on them, and in case of tech problems, try to refresh the page, and maybe also switch your video off to save bandwidth for audio. Please mute yourselves. That's very important, because otherwise we have a lot of typing and coughing and other sounds interfering. And if you're on video, we can also try with lifting your hand if you want to say something, but I guess at the moment it's probably safer to just write in the chat, because we'll all see it better. And last but not least, be prepared to be active, because this session is designed to be a bit more like an online workshop and not like a webinar. So yeah, looking forward to exchanging with you on this. So for a start, let's try an introduction round. And I'd like to ask all of you, both those who I can see and the others who I can't see, to quickly share their name and organization and a word on how has the corona crisis changed your way of working. So please share one positive effect and one challenge. And I will take notes of what you say here in the slide. I hope you can see that. And those who are on video, maybe you can start first, and then also just nominate the next person. So I see someone called Moritz. Maybe Moritz, you might want to start, and then you nominate the next person to share. Which organization are they from? One opportunity that this new situation creates, and one challenge.
Yeah, hello everybody, it's Moritz.
We can't hear you.
Oh,
I think you have to unmute yourself first.
Unmuted, that's weird. Oh.
Now?
Can you hear me now?
I think I can hear you now. Can you say that? Yes.
So, hello everybody, it's Moritz from Switzerland. I work for Voraus, Foreign and Foreign Policy, and I'm the project manager for international digital health at Voraus. So yeah, we have been affected also by the coronavirus crisis, because lots of our events had to be cancelled. So maybe a negative effect was that in the short term, we really had to reschedule a lot of things and cancel certain physical events. Positive side effect is that we developed new skills in doing digital workshops, and we could hold our general assembly. And we're also now in Switzerland involved in the Swiss-wide hackathon, which is going to happen this weekend. And on this, and then we could also leverage our policy kitchen platform around the coronavirus. So maybe it was a bit long, but yeah, that's sort of some of the effects that the crisis had on us. Maybe Lizzie, you want to continue?
Sure. I'm Lizzie. I work as head of communications and creative content at a think tank called Theos. We're a religion and society think tank, so we have some really interesting thinking around kind of the bigger questions of life that that this pandemic throws up. One of the positive effects has been collaboration. So I think people have been accessible in ways that they aren't usually, because diaries have been cleared of meetings, and actually people opportunities for collaboration have been really positive in the last couple of weeks even. I think on the negative side, as with many of you, we're looking at how we can do our events differently, because our events are a big part of our work. So having had to cancel a couple of big events we had coming up and thinking about how we do those differently, but relationships aren't usually formed quite as well over video call as they are in person. So we're thinking about that. Maybe I'll pass to Aidan.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Did I get the acronym right for your think tank?
Sorry, no, Theos, Theos.
Theos. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
And who do you nominate next?
I'm nominating Aidan Muller.
Hi, Aidan.
Hi everyone. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
Excellent. So I'm Aidan. I'm a partner at Cast from Claire. We basically work in policy communications, and in terms of you know, the challenges is similar to everyone else, but I think like, you know, the main one has been in terms of forward planning, like, you know, the challenge of kind of knowing, like, you know, what is going ahead, like what isn't, like opportunities to meet people, which might have happened at networking events, at conferences, etc. You know, have been more limited, like, you know, by necessity. I guess, like, you know, the main positive for us, and like, you know, looking at this through a communications lens, is kind of I suspect that in the kind of medium to long term is like it's making people reconsider what the ROI on physical events is versus digital. So like, you know, thinking through things which, like, you know, happened almost by default, like physical events. You know, all of a sudden, I think there's going to be, like, you know, after this, you know, more of a kind of, you know, less of a kind of events by default and more of a rebalancing between physical events and digital. So I think in the long term, that's going to be a positive.
Mm-hmm.
Should I nominate someone who's not on video?
Maybe
Karen.
first go on with video, and then when we are finished, you know, maybe other people can join, and those who were on video can step back, so we can have everyone in here for once in the beginning.
Sure. Karen, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Perfect. I'm also working at DJP, so I'm here to support Claire and Daniela, actually. And I'm curious to hear what you other people say. I'm working in the comms team of DJP.
And what opportunity and challenges do you see in the current situation? Maybe one per category.
I think since I'm working mostly online and communicating via social media, one of the biggest challenges at the moment is to see what's relevant and what's not relevant in the current crisis, and also to draw attention to topics that are important even though they're not related to Corona, and how we can still follow the debate and make a discussion on topics that are still important even though Corona is over everything, obviously. I think that's one of the questions I have in going digital in times of Corona.
I think that's a very important point, yeah, because Corona is everything at the moment, right? So who do you nominate next from the video people?
Yeah, I can't see the participants, unfortunately.
Can you see the other people on video?
I can see the ones on video, yeah. And yeah. So I just saw that Isabel Reible came in, so I can nominate her maybe.
Isabel? Otherwise, we can go on with Michael. I think Michael Kleiman is in the chat as well. Hi, Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael. I run a production company called Media Tank. I do film and video around policy issues, working with think tanks and other advocacy organizations and nonprofits. In terms of the impact of COVID, I mean, a lot of the work I do requires in-person shoots and productions, and even animated projects have in-person components. So I've had a lot of projects put on hold or postponed. I think on the positive side, it's been an opportunity for me to dig deeply into some independent projects that have been ongoing for a while that are in a place where I can work from home on. So that's been nice to get them to a further point. But it's also an opportunity to kind of reflect on how story communications can change in a social distanced world, I guess, and as this goes on further. And I will nominate Stephen. I don't think I've heard you yet.
Here I am. Happy to say a few words. I am involved on think tanks to a little extent, but I'm retired. And because I'm retired, my personal working patterns haven't changed that much since I do most of my work from home remotely anyway. But I do have a more interesting experience that I could recount, even though I don't know how it will turn out yet. I'm involved in working on the research uptake for a very large DFID, that's the UK aid agency project, involving policymakers and researchers in sub-Saharan Africa and Asia. It was launched on the 1st of March. It runs for 5 years, and we have a 1-year inception period in which we have to build a stakeholder network among policymakers in low-income countries. So I have no idea how we're going to do it yet, but this is the challenge that suddenly faces us. It will be interesting to have this conversation in about 3 months, because I would feel or seem a bit less hopeless. But this is going to be a serious challenge, even working remotely, given the lack of internet penetration in many of the countries we have to do the work in. We are really challenged, and we'll have to find some very innovative solution to this problem, which will involve somehow interacting with policymakers in, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50 countries. Very few of whom probably have internet at home. So I don't know whether they're going to be working from home or from offices, and connectivity is a real challenge. So it would be nice to think we could switch to this kind of interaction. But given the people that we have to actually interact with, it's not so clear how we're going to do that. We'll have to be very inventive.
Yeah, thank you. Who would you like to nominate next? I think we've had almost everyone who's on video. So we've had another mention by Sonia via the chat. So Sonia is a member of the executive board of the Belgrade Center for Security Policy in Serbia and an organizational consultant. And she says the opportunity of the current situation for her is to support strategic planning of civil society organizations working in post-conflict regions who finally have the time and the peace to engage in this process. So similar to what some of you already mentioned. And she hopes that she will be able to forecast trends and make a plan in an online process. The challenge she sees is that much of her work was related to mentoring civil society organizations in dealing with oversight of security institutions in different countries and facilitation of processes, which is very difficult to do at a distance. That is very true. I will add this soon. Is there anyone else who would like to jump in and share an opportunity and challenge that they're witnessing right now. And please, yeah, feel free to click the blue participate button and join us on video. Erica writes that she's the communications director of On Think Tanks, and On Think Tanks already work from home and remotely with most of the team, so the work scheme as such hasn't changed that much. A positive impact has been seeing a bigger sense of community and a lot of support and willingness to try new platforms. So everyone feels they have to experiment, so there's a new openness for that. And a negative impact that she sees evidently that we had to postpone our face-to-face event in Berlin. Yeah, I agree on that. We were very much looking forward to hosting this at DJP, and we all of us put a lot of work into it. But I'm also excited about what this new different kind of mini online conference brings to us. And also we will do the conference anyway at a different point in time. So I see that Regine Wehner joined us on video. Regine, would you like to share a challenge and an opportunity that you observed?
Of course. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfectly. My name is Regine. I work for the Bosch Foundation in Germany. If the Corona crisis wouldn't be here, we would have seen each other yesterday because we were intended to host the public event, the panel on technology and think tanks. But it worked this way as well, so that was interesting. This connects well to the opportunity to really try out digital conferences like this one, which I really think is going to be an alternative also in the long run to minimize the costs of flying and the environmental impact of that. Certainly a big challenge is connected to the work that we do as a foundation, because a large part of our funding goes into international understanding and cooperation. So we fund a lot of projects where people actually meet each other and exchange. And since this is not possible at the moment, only through video, we are quite concerned of the organizations that we fund that do these programs and that have financial problems at the moment, and also because the work that they do, they can't do right now.
So many grantees have financial problems because of the situation, and international work is difficult to carry out right now. Okay, okay, I will just take the ones that are in the chat. There's a lot in the chat right here, and then we'll go on. So Wiebke, our colleague, head of communications at the German Council on Foreign Relations, writes that the biggest practical challenge for her currently is getting colleagues from different parts of the organization up to speed on digital and collaborative tools like Zoom or Microsoft Teams. But at the same time, this is also the big opportunity of the current situation. Joe Miller from Soapbox, director of the Washington, D.C. studio of Soapbox, writes that a big challenge is that a lot of think tanks still rely pretty heavily on physical things, including events, printed material, face-to-face meeting with legislators, etc. But positive effect is that at his house in DC, attending a conference that was scheduled to happen in Berlin is actually a positive experience. And there's also a real opportunity to democratize our work, bringing in people who don't happen to live near where policy work happens. So that's an interesting new aspect. We can now bring in people from all around the world or all around our own countries without having to fly them in. That's perfect. Sonia wants to add another challenge, that is access to credible evidence when freedom of movement is limited and there are no people to respond to requests for freedom of information interviews. Yeah, this is probably also related to government agencies being a bit in chaos and crisis mode right now. Tom from Catherine Clay writes that the opportunity he sees is to re-establish in the US and in the UK the importance of expertise to a healthy society, literally and figuratively, and so many challenges. And okay, there's a lot. And Sonia wants to add that it's also difficult to verify information from social media. Yeah, this is also, we have all seen a surge in misinformation at the moment, and in times where people are very anxious and they're looking for information that, you know, might not be verified yet, so they're more prone to believe what they get through different channels. So I will try to add this later, some of the other aspects that you've mentioned. But for now, I would like to share with you, or we would like to share with you, some experiences that we had at DGAP going digital in the past few weeks. So this is really learn as we go, and I would like Daniela to join us and share our perspective.
Thank you very much, Claire. Thank you for your introduction, and hello to everybody. I'm really happy that I can participate, at least on the workshop. As you may all remember, the conference was initially supposed to take place in Berlin, and actually at our premises. So we really regret not meeting all of you in person at our DGAP home. Now, let me briefly start by sharing a few things about DGAP, so you know a bit about the animal that we'll be talking about. The German Council on Foreign Relations is a membership organization, so we have about 3,000 members, of which 1,000 are younger than 35, which we are very proud of. We have 85 employees based in Berlin, though under the conditions of Corona crisis, they are also pretty spread out across Europe, some of them. We are both a think tank, but then also the network I described. We run. So there's a strange noise. Can you all mute your computers or cell phones? Thank you. I'm sorry? Okay, so let me continue. And so we have three goals to our work. First of all, we provide policy advice, as think tanks do. We promote debate across Germany, but we also want to reach out to other European audiences, of course. And we seek to work with the next generation to develop basically expertise, but also coach people towards leadership roles in the big realm of foreign policy. We have decided to shift our originally fully regionally structured think tank away from a regional focus to a topical focus, and we run 5 big issue areas. First of all, security and defense, geoeconomics, tech and digitization, migration, and then all of those, including also climate change, feed into questions of international order and democracy. Now, we are an organization which is less spread out and less used to digital work than many other think tanks that run several offices or have teams that work spread out or work from home. So what I'm talking about is really the experience of an organization that is in a way very local, with its team in one building, and people come to work usually in the morning. Some of them do home office, but usually they would come to their office. So our digital challenge was actually quite big. Now, but why did we, of course, decide to do it? First of all, we need to continue running our organization in a situation where we have no clue how long the lockdown will last. And we always started from the hypothesis that it would rather be a pretty long period and not a matter of 2 weeks that was initially politically announced in Germany. But we also, of course, see that it is mission critical for us to be able to work digitally, because we, in this situation of the corona shutdown and our, the strong European convocation that we feel it is extremely important to continue our work and even rethink our work, to bring stakeholders together, to assume not only our expert and advisory role, but also our public role, which is one of the goals we have, that we advance foreign policy debates. We have come up with ideas how to keep the international exchange going. We have made offers to our government. And we finally, because we have such a strong focus also on good governance, democracy and rule of law, we felt that think tanks, of course, have a hugely important role to play at a time where authoritarian governments make use of the situation of the pandemic and actually expand their grip of power. Now, Claire, we can go to the next slide, if possible. Claire, can you take us to...
It's already. The operation. Which slide? Can you see
12, please. Super. So what I would like to talk about is basically three things. The first one is the operational challenge that we were facing. Then secondly, the management challenge. And finally, the content challenge of rethinking think tank work under the COVID-19 conditions. Now, when it comes to operational resilience, I already said that we are a rather traditional organization in the way we are set up. And what we did back in February, we actually looked at the critical infrastructure we need for our work and the work processes. And because we run with a rather small IT budget, we decided to identify just sort of the critical points in the organization where it is not sufficient to just have some laptop or some cell phone somewhere that goes onto some wireless LAN, but we actually said we need to identify precisely which jobs and which teams need server access and how we can assure they are fully operational. And we came up with a pretty short list, I must say, of jobs that actually need a full DGAP work environment, no matter where they are. And for all of those employees, plus of course a number of backups, we bought new laptops, we bought VPN clients, and we ensured that we have the server and cloud capacity to actually run the organization remotely. We then also bought access to video platforms, and in our case, this is not only guided by the goal to make sure the organization works, but also to be able to provide platforms to the network of our organization. So regional events, but mostly events that we run from Berlin that can be accessed either by defined groups or can be fully public. We had to adapt certain bits and pieces in our administrative process because we were completely under-digitized when we all started this. So in terms of accounting, in terms of processing invoices and things like that, we really had to look at workflows and transpose them to a digital environment. And right now we are in a place where we exactly see what we would need, but we haven't quite had the time to introduce this, such as digital signatures, full digitization of our budget process and all of these things. But we do see, and Claire said this early on, we do see this whole situation as a huge opportunity for our organization actually to push ahead with a digitization agenda, which we have anyways, but we now have to do it much more quickly and in a much more focused way. And I would say from a leadership perspective, this is actually not a bad situation because we have to test things, we need to make them work, and we are very, very focused to make this happen. Now, part of the operational resilience was, of course, also the moment of the switch over to digital work. And as the COVID-19 situation has been evolving pretty quickly, we kept sharing our assessment of the situation with staff. So first we introduced certain health measures within our building, and we obviously developed a policy on events and how because our building is made for events, so we usually have large events running in our place. So we defined how we do this, and then we also defined an endpoint to the convenings we made, and that was basically a Friday more than 2 weeks ago. And at that moment, we also switched over our team to remote work. That then, I must say, went pretty smoothly. And now I'd like to go to the management challenge. So I guess the thing that showed up in many of your comments earlier on is, of course, how do you lead not only a team, a small team, but actually an organization of this size, plus the network we have remotely. And what I think is a key starting point is communicate enough and more regularly than you would usually do with the whole group through emails, through meetings and so on, and try to do this very clearly. And the other thing that we as you know, as a 3 people leadership team, we put up as a goal for us, we said we always want to make sure that people find that the remote work and the digital cooperation works really efficiently, because we were concerned in the beginning that if it doesn't, people will get frustrated if we lose too much time, if we don't start meetings on time and things like that. So we really thought what the organization in its digital shape has to deliver is that staff makes the experience that this actually works pretty smoothly and that they don't lose time by logging into the conversations we are having. Then one thing that is really very important to me is that we keep trust levels high. And I mean this in all directions. So as the leadership of the organization, we decided to really ask team leaders to define with their teams what kind of working rhythm and handling of very practical situations with kids at home and everything that comes with the COVID-19 situation and closed schools, that we really delegated this into the teams. And we do not really wish to control how this is implemented, because we believe that in the situation, everyone has to act very self-responsibly and has to make sure when that person is working, that the output is delivered that the organization needs or the project needs. But then, of course, there is a lot of flexibility. We obviously working hours are totally flexible, but we defined collectively how do we make sure that also private time is respected, how do we not intrude, and so on. But in this whole process, we rely very heavily on team and project leaders. I believe that reaching out to staff is really important. So I personally spend quite a lot of time on whatever instrument I use, but to talk to people individually, as well as talking to teams, but also, of course, talking to the whole organization. But you never know whether you get the right feedback you need to assess where the organization really is. So what we have been doing, and Claire will talk more about that, we have had surveys, both on the side of technical equipment and tools, but also our work council surveyed colleagues about sort of the personal coping with the situation, family, work, life consistencies and things like that. And we asked people to send us their best tips and tricks, how they cope with the situation. And that was maybe one of the highlights last week, that we really got a very substantive and very constructive list of ideas. How do you handle the working from home situation, and how do you best manage your job, but also as a team leader, your leadership responsibility and all of those things. And we shared this widely with staff, so everyone has that list without any comments from our side. And I personally like looking at it because it's so useful, and it reminds you also of simple things like if you sit at your desk from 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. and you don't move because you don't even commute, this is not very healthy. So there are lots of practical things in there. Another thing that we did quite early on, and we're still in the process of doing this, is assessment of the financial risks. Of course, there are short-term risks in running projects, but as an organization that has a very mixed funding base, we also look at, of course, the economic forecast, and we ask ourselves who in a recession will cut our support, our partnerships first. And so we have, I think, a reasonable level of concern about that issue. And we mostly, in that case, for the more, I would say, more substantive risks, we look into the year 2021, not so much the year 2020, because that's only operational risk and project implementation, but the bigger risk lies with funding going away in the medium term. We use this opportunity to very proactively reach out to partners and target groups. And I may say that my perspective on funders is very interesting in this situation, because we have one very proactive funder, a foundation that has very actively reached out and not only reassured us that they would offer complete flexibility as to how we adapt our work to the new context, but they also offer peer-to-peer exchanges, very much the way we are doing this now, which I find very, very useful. But reaching out to the actual target groups has also proven to be very useful, because they give you new ideas and they tell you what they need, and they give you a sense of how much time do they actually have to deal with the thoughts you may want to share with them and the input you may want to deliver. And now, so this already almost leads me into the next slides. We are indeed reviewing the goals of certain projects where we feel that the political situation has changed so much that we feel, you know, we have to adapt a whole project, or we have to adapt the output we deliver, not only going digital, but really thinking through whether we are still asking the right questions. And with that, I'm already sort of in the content piece. First of all, you know, in my work, I'm very much focused not only on German foreign policy, but also on the European context. And here, and many of you will have similar experiences from what you focus on, the political context has really changed in just a matter of 1 or 2 weeks. So the traveling bans, the meeting bans, the fact that political meetings are all now also digital, the fact that people are self-isolated, even on a ministerial level, this does create a new context. And plus that, we have our foreign policy makers entirely absorbed in crisis management mood, which lets certain other topics really drop off the radar screen. What I realize, for instance, when I pick up the topic of the future of the EU, because Germany is heading for its own EU presidency starting on July 1st, we can clearly see that even that now seems to be a far away perspective, but the focus is really on day-to-day crisis management. And what is happening at the moment is that the medium and long-term developments are under-assessed. And so we risk making the same mistakes again that European policymakers made in the last real big European crisis, meaning the financial and sovereign debt crisis as of 2008, where the long-term or medium-term consequences of action or non-action weren't really taken into account. And this is where we see our value added at the moment. First of all, building relevant groups of peers among Europeans, and they may vary according to the actual situation of the crisis evolving, and then offering these groups or these networks to policymakers to bring them in individually or to match them. For instance, last week I ran a small seminar with 3 fellow think tank directors and 4 directors of policy planning, and we looked at precisely this medium and long-term outlook, and it proved to be quite interesting to them and useful. So of course we continue publishing, why wouldn't we not? But we do redefine our agenda according to the actual situation, but we really make extra effort to be forward-looking and not get absorbed in the crisis characteristics of the precise day. One big learning for me was that we need to review whether the right people get our output. So because of the crisis that was driven by a health incident, now there are certain people in the driving seat of national crisis management, but also European and foreign policy crisis management that actually don't sit in the usual ministries. The health ministry is doing a big job at the moment, but they are not usually our clients, if you like. So we really have to make sure that the right people who are now deciding on what's happening are actually included in our list. It may seem banal, but for us it was a learning that there's a whole different crowd involved at the moment that we don't usually have on our radar screen. Final point, which may be useful to all of you, some of the foundations put up emergency or crisis-driven programs, not only to help operationability of organizations, but also to precisely fund new work that now seems politically salient. And I can only say from a grantee perspective that this is a huge opportunity if foundations think about it that way and try to be as agile as think tanks are in helping us all, and I really mean all, not all think tanks, but all of us involved in foreign policy making to cope with this current moment, which seems quite challenging for all of us. So with that, over to Claire.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Okay, can you hear me? Okay, great. So I just want to add a couple of perspectives from the operational point of view. So to give you a feeling, as Daniela said, it was only basically 2 weeks that we are looking at right now. So this is a very rapid transition for a mostly offline think tank doing a lot of physical events. So what we did very practically, in addition to the work and thought that the management put in, was that we founded a bottom-up task force in the organization that brought together IT staff, comm staff, event staff, colleagues from research management, director's office, and me from the Impact and Innovation Lab. The reason we did this was to take all the weight from the shoulders of only IT staff, because basically we have one colleague who's in this. And if he gets all the questions about how does Zoom work and where do I log into Teams and where can I find this and that file through the VPN client, then it's just impossible for them to handle. So what we did as a first step was to bundle capacities and open a Teams channel. We are working with Microsoft Teams for internal communications. So through that, we could very easily and quickly react and help each other out and like draft guidelines and so on. And we also made this task force open to all, because there are many people in the organizations who have good ideas, and they might not even be in any of those units, but they might just know their way through all of those tools. Then what Daniela also mentioned was that we took a needs-based approach. So on day 2 of being in home office, we sent out an online survey to all of our staff asking what do they actually need in times of remote work, which tools will be essential for them, and what is their pre-knowledge with these tools. So we know, okay, do all of them already use Zoom on a regular basis, for example, or should we start from scratch when explaining them? We also asked them what would help them getting started, because some, might prefer written guidelines, others might like online tutorials, or just like dropping a tech question to someone who can give an answer. So we try to see where to pool our resources and what to do first. And we also use this opportunity to actually reach out and see which other processes should be digitized at the organization in the future, and also who could support other colleagues with using these tools. And one finding that came out, for example, we then analyzed the results. We got a lot of responses, and one very concrete effect was that, for example, some colleagues said that, in addition to all of those tech things, we actually wonder how we can have also the social interaction that we have in our building when we walk into our tea kitchen. How could we do this online? So we created a Teams channel called Teeküche, which is tea kitchen in German. And this is just one of the many ideas that came up through the survey. So I can really encourage you to just ask everyone for their ideas. It will be very helpful. Then what we did and focused on next from day 2 and to ongoing was to actually get everyone on board. For this, it's important to recognize not everybody has the same pre-knowledge. Not everybody feels very comfortable working with these tech-heavy ways of communication. So the first thing we did was to focus on getting internal communications right. So we published written guidelines for everyone, step-by-step guides, how to install Microsoft Teams, how to do online meetings, web talks via Zoom. And we also invest now heavily in tech skills. So we have a format, regular format for skill sharing, which is called Method Breakfast at DJP, and we are doing this virtually now and at a much higher pace. So we do this weekly now. We also have recordings of sessions, and they're all focused. The topics of exchange are all focused on getting, how to use Teams for teamwork, how to do effective and participatory online meeting facilitation, how to do virtual events via Zoom, and so on. So we will do this, and we are already doing this. And also we encourage everyone to share lessons learned. So for example, if one of our colleagues already facilitated a meeting with their stakeholders, then we just ask them to share their lessons learned via email with everyone. So, we actually become smarter and learn and can build on what other colleagues already tried. We're also providing peer support. We have a help forum. We collect good practices. This is something Daniela already mentioned, because it's also for, about home office life in general. It's not only about tools and technology. And we also encourage program managers to do personal check-ins with their teams and check if everybody's doing well and how they can do to support. And last but not least, and on top of trying to invest in everyone's tech skills, there was also a new colleague hired from a tech company to support us for 1 year with both policy work on tech and foreign policy, but also with digitization of the organization, which of course now comes at a very, very good point in time. Publications for us have almost entirely been online before the Corona crisis, so processes and products haven't changed too much, but as my colleague from Com said earlier, of course it's a question how to draw attention to those topics that now are pushed to the sidelines a little bit by the Corona crisis. So what we've focused on a lot in the last 2 weeks was actually how to get our events online, because we're an events-heavy think tank. We have study groups, we have panel debates, we have conferences, workshops, so everything you can imagine. So first step was to think about how we can expand our capacities technically in our processes. So we expanded our Zoom capacities to have now 5 Zoom meetings that can happen in parallel, and which is very important, to not have anyone jump into another person's Zoom meeting by accident. It's very important to think about how to streamline the booking of those rooms. And we decided to use a process that is familiar for everyone in the organization and to integrate the Zoom rooms into our room booking system via Outlook. So colleagues can book Zoom rooms the same way they used to book the rooms in our house. So that is, I think, very trying not to, start a new process altogether. And as all of you already wrote, you're very interested in formats and tools, and this is something that we're expanding and learning continuously. So at the moment, what we are doing is to use the following tools and formats for the following purposes. And I think that's a very important point to say at the beginning. So it's really about the purpose, and I agree with the colleague that mentioned in the beginning that this situation forces us to be much more purposeful, much more strategic about meetings and events, really think about each one of them, if it's really necessary, what's the function, what's the purpose, to see what way we can actually do it online. For one-on-one meetings and small meetings, we use Microsoft Teams call. For panel debates and lectures, what were panel debates and lectures before, we are using Zoom mode, and we call these events web talks. We already started that half a year ago, so we're quite independent of the Corona situation. So we were quite well prepared to roll this out to more areas of the organization. And there you have the pluses that you can show presentations, just like we're doing right now. You can share your screen. You have a Q&A function and chat, and you can also do audience polls. So there are a couple of the same functionalities as here. But beyond that, you can also do more collaborative workshops, both internally. For example, if you're thinking of designing a new product or conceptualizing a new project internally as a team, or also with stakeholders, with funders, but also, of course, policy workshops to think about new policy strategies with different policymakers. And for this, you can also do it online. We use Zoom in the meeting mode. The plus of this is that you can see everyone on video. It's not like the webinar mode where you can only see the speakers. And it has a couple of additional functions that are very helpful for collaborative workshops. So you can break down the participants and send them into smaller rooms yet. So imagine us being here, 30 people, and I could just send you into smaller groups of, let's say, 5 participants and give you a task to work on. And then after a set time of like 10 minutes, you'd all be sent back to the plenary. So that's very helpful. You can also use screen share, for example, for live note-taking. You've seen this. We have been doing this here in this session. So this is very helpful because my observation is visualization helps a great deal with keeping focus. And you can also use Google Slides to collaborate in templates. And we will show you this so you can experience it as a participant yourselves. For conference multi-session events, this is our first trial at this with the Hopin platform. And of course, we are beyond just bringing our usual formats online. We are also now thinking and brainstorming about different new digital first formats. For example, hackathons, somebody mentioned that in the beginning, Ask Me Anything. We have already published some videos of mini expert interviews on Twitter, so this is really a creative phase to think about new formats. I think I will skip this like facilitation and just go to the summary of opportunities and challenges from our perspective and hand over to Daniela for a last word on this, and then we will go to the interactive part of. Daniela, can you hear us?
I was talking to myself apparently because I was on mute. So thank you, Claire. I will very briefly run through the opportunities and challenges. So I guess what became clear in particular through Claire's part of the presentation, this is a huge opportunity to innovate. We are simply testing things that are in any case very valuable to our work beyond the corona crisis, and it really sharpens our thinking about which toolbox we use for think tank work going forward and even in the long term. The learning curve is extremely steep, I guess, for all of us, and it runs right through the organization. And one of the reasons is really that the task force that Claire described brings together so many people and really spends so much time in again, giving the chance for others to connect and to learn from what they have discovered, they have tested, and then they roll it out, and there's a constant back and forth. When it comes to activities that we actually do continue as we used to do them, I feel we are more strategic about the way we go about them, and in particular about new things we are setting up. This crisis and the pressure that comes with it, and also the personal the personal pressure on every single person who may be running a family on the side that is all home. The question of what are we doing, why, and what's the purpose is, I think, answered in a sharper way than previously. And in that way, we are also more ready, which I think is a huge asset for any organization, to review and let go of routines that may have proven outdated or things that you don't really need to do. Some of you who commented earlier on mentioned the advantage of not traveling so much. True, we do lose something because we don't travel, but on the other hand, we gain time and we can do other things at the same time. So the challenges are, first of all, in the digital space themselves, data protection, the question of data safety. Are we using the right platforms? Are they acceptable to our counterparts? All those questions aren't finally answered. We think we have found something that works, but of course the debate on that is increasing. We have encountered situations where policymakers in particular were slightly hesitant to go even under Chatham House rule, and rather because they said, look, we don't even know who is in the room and who's listening in. I mean, that problem you can always have in every face-to-face meeting, because anyone can tape a meeting and take it somewhere else, but we feel there's a stronger awareness and maybe more caution. So the question of, do we create a space that is perceived as safe and trustworthy, that's a bigger question we need to continue dealing with. Yes, I already mentioned the platform question. From a government perspective, Zoom may actually not be acceptable. So we have situations where some people then call in by phone, and we either have to, mostly we have to link phone and video calls. That's easy on Zoom. It's not ideal, but that's the way we need to go. Less protocol, yes. Online meetings are obviously less formal than face-to-face ones. It's an opportunity because people are more relaxed. You get people more easily to a meeting, but at the same time, you have to think through, how do I actually handle this in a way that is acceptable to everyone? And I think over time, a new protocol, a new etiquette will develop for online meetings. Final conclusion for the challenges: it is a lot of work. I mean, I think all of us, may have thought at the very beginning of this situation, Corona gives us a break. We won't travel, so there's time to think, to read, and to write. But far from. I think our working days are actually longer, more intense, but also very fruitful. So, Claire, maybe the final learning slide, which sums up much of what has been said before. Yes. So the key word for me, really, after those short weeks of experience, is it's really a huge team effort. And, neither the leadership team nor the IT staff can cope with this alone. It's all of the organization, and it's in particular the initiative of a certain group of people within the organization that reach out into all parts of the organization that made this work for us. Many of the ideas come from places where, if you had thought about it theoretically 3-5 months ago, you wouldn't have thought that that's where the idea comes from, because you would have thought it's an IT question or it's a leadership job. Yeah, but if I had sat down with our IT specialist alone, I think we wouldn't by far be where we are. And the reason is that people who can really speak from their experience, test the tools, and then identify what is best, has brought us to the place where we are now. Of course, you have to be acutely aware of the tech level or the tech knowledge that everyone brings to work, which can differ greatly. There is obviously an age issue, and I think we have managed, and I can tell that from some of the presentations from around the organizations that we have asked colleagues to make briefly in all staff meetings, that even those parts of the organization where you would have thought there might be resistance or there might be slowness, they see it in a very hands-on and practical way. And thanks to the initiative of the task force, which understands that they also have to help and encourage people to test and use, and are extremely patient and very clear in all the the brief summaries, how to use this or that. This is super helpful, and it makes the success of this digital transition. Let me conclude by saying that it's not only about buying technology and having the right laptops in place, but it's really a big change management tasks. And this, in our case, hasn't worked top down. It's really a collective effort, and I must say, I'm every day I'm positively surprised and really happy about the energy that lies in that process.
Thank you, Daniela. Everybody has been very active throughout our input already. I saw in the chat many ideas, many questions regarding concrete tools, and the idea that we had was actually exactly this. So to dedicate the last half an hour that we have to collecting solutions, tips, and tools from every one of you, because all of you might have different experiences with different tools. And to do this, we wanted to just try something for you to not only talk about online collaboration, but actually experiencing it. So I am posting a link in the chat in a minute, but let me first explain how we will go about this. So we will do individual brainstorming in a minute, and we do this because we're, as far as I can see, 29 people right now in this session. So, and in this digital way where we cannot see everyone, we do not want to do this as an open discussion because not everyone will get the chance to speak. So we will do it individually by providing you access to our slides, actually. And you will see in a second how it looks like. So this is a slide that we prepared for this session. And these are virtual post-its, so to say. So, for example, we will now identify what are the most important challenges that we want to focus on in the brainstorming. And then in the brainstorming, we will give you the link to our Google slide, and everybody can just go in there for the first challenge and add their ideas on one of those virtual post-its. So, for example, imagine that challenge number 1 is the problem to find a tool that is both user-friendly and complying with GDPR norms. So everyone who has any solutions, tips, or tools, or any conferencing technology that they can recommend, please put it in here. So somebody has mentioned Jitsi, just write it in here. Place it somewhere. Colors don't matter, just take whatever you like. So this is the way that we have done a workshop last week to actually try to resemble how we would work with post-its in a workshop setting, but do it online. So this is something that we wanted to try with you to also see how this works for you, and also to collect all the collective intelligence and crowd knowledge here about specific tools. But first, we would like to collect the challenges that are most important for most of us. And I think what many people mentioned in the beginning was really bringing events, doing virtual events, right? Or maybe this is one where we shared our experience, but I'm sure that many of you have like other experience to add. So this is maybe the first challenge that we can identify. I'm also going back to the beginning of our presentation where we collected a couple of challenges, which says relations are not formed easily online. I think a lot of the work that we are doing as think tanks is about political network building, community building, building alliances. So I think this is a very important point to add. Yeah, building international networks was mentioned. So this is a second. International networking and community building online, how to do it attractively, etc. Then which other challenges do you think should we look at in the last couple of minutes? Okay, Tom is suggesting how to get people adopt new tools as you're introducing them. Okay. Okay, I'm looking in the chat what other suggestions were for the challenges we could focus on. I think the one big interest was really in this events realm. So maybe we could do, I'm switching through your comments. So maybe we could actually divide these virtual events in doing, large scale webinar, how to reach out and doing events. And also of us are doing is like more intimate sessions, meetings, but also workshop-like settings. So I will put these in here. And I think maybe the last one could be related to the challenge that was suggested by Tom and others. So internal communications and as skill up, how to skill up for digital work. So as I said, we would now go to 5 minutes individual brainstorming. I'm providing you in the chat with a link to our slides. So this is, you're allowed to live edit the slides now. Click on this Google Doc link that I just sent you in the chat. And please join us. Some people are already joining us, that's perfect. Please go to slide 29 to 35. And just use the next 5 minutes, and I will let you know when the time is over. Use the next 5 minutes to just take one of those post-it, write whatever idea you have for solutions, good practices that you've heard of, links, tips, and tools in there, depending on the topic. Don't use the slides in between that are empty. Only use the ones with the colorful post-its. And you can just click around, go to each of those slides, and add whatever idea you may want to add. And then in 5 minutes, we will go through them slide by slide and see what we've collected there, and then write up a list what to do. So please use the ones with or maybe we just, I think now for the time being, okay, let's be pragmatic. Maybe use the slides, exactly, the one that's already used by Anonymous Leopard. So use the ones for the, where you can just add in a list. So somebody is already suggesting intimate meetings and workshops, what to do. And then the second one can be a to-do list for large-scale events. Then we have another one for international community building. And please just add all of your ideas here. I see someone is typing. Can everybody type these? Okay, is everybody in the slide and can work on it? Just maybe give me a short thumbs up in the chat so I know we didn't lose anyone. Perfect. Thanks, Erica. Okay, yeah. So just grab the slides and we'll see. Just add all of your ideas in there on the different slides. The first one, 29, is on intimate meetings and workshops. The next one is on large-scale events. The next one on internal communication and how to skill up for digital work. And yes. I see a lot of people are adding ideas for internal communications and how to skill up for digital work and for intimate meetings and workshops. So maybe some of you might want to focus on large scale events and internal, yeah. So this is in between, this is the slide 30. Was there another topic that was maybe interesting? For some, there's some conversation in the chat about spreading across too many different platforms. I think that's a point that we should take into account with the internal communications. Okay. So let us run through these slides now together. Finish the one thing that you wanted to write, and let's all meet at slide 29. And if you want, you can also go into the hop-in view again, because I will be broadcasting this basically, so you don't have to go in here as you wish. So someone wrote for intimate meetings and workshops, what to do. I recommend guidelines for professional use of digital formats. Very important, written guidelines. Everybody can look at them whenever they have time and review them later. So that's a very good recommendation from our experiences as well. We can support that. Video is more personal than audio. Participants should look at the camera, position their head in the center of the screen, and check where the light comes from. Also, we can add that actually Zoom and also Teams support the function of blurring your background, which is very helpful because not every one of us has like a very, representative background in their kitchen maybe, or they just want to have some more privacy when talking to policymakers. So this is very good blur or neutral background. And I actually had like a list of like online etiquette or online meeting etiquette and guidelines in this presentation. I skipped this part, but I'm very happy to send this around along with the whole presentation. So you can make use of this, and we can also expand this as we go. Video meetings are more draining than in-person versions. There is a sense of unnaturalness. Don't think that because you're talking face-to-face, it's just like meeting in person. That's very true. That's true individually. It's also true for group dynamics. Group dynamics are different online because things are delayed, because people get distracted more easily. They tend to check on their emails and other things at the site. So think about ways how to engage everyone and keep everyone focused. Visualization helps a lot. Again, I have a list here in the presentation for these kinds of facilitation tips. What I can add is maybe check in at the beginning, have everyone say something in the beginning, for example, for an introduction around, that helps a lot. Ask everyone to mute themselves because this is draining, all these like additional noises coming from elsewhere, the echo, that's very draining on people. Visualization helps a lot. I said that. Use screen share for structure, live note taking, show slides with the agenda and so on. So this is all helpful instead of just looking at faces only. Temperature, attention checks are helpful as well. Work with hand signs, for example. Ask people if they're still listening. Ask them for short feedbacks. You can also use chat and polls to have site discussions, or ask everyone to give a temperature check. And as I said, like neutral blurred background is very helpful. Yeah, we should also be teaching online moderation. I absolutely agree. It is a general thing. Facilitation is a competence that has to be learned, and it's getting better with practice. So this is something that we should invest in, and online facilitation is like another subset that's very important. To know at this moment. It's not just a tech question. Again, it's really about facilitation and preparation. And also do testing. So test, prepare, invest more time in preparation than you expected maybe, or that you would normally invest in an event. And a list of recommendations on online etiquette, absolutely. Let's compile this. We go to the next slide, slide 30, large-scale events, what to do. Here we have also a number of really helpful ideas. Have prep meetings with key people for the process as well as speakers. Very important, do testing. Ask people to log in from the same account using the same hardware, microphone, and computer that they will also be using during the event. This is a learning that we had. We did an event with a cooperation partner from the UK, and we tested it, but we tested it with their comms staff and not with the speakers. And then on the next day, they were using a different computer and a different microphone, and it didn't work out during the actual event. So yeah, let's do this. That's very important advice. Develop good questions for discussion and share them before the event so that people are mentally ready to plug in. That's very helpful as well. Daily summaries or even after the panels. Hop in. Yeah, I think every one of us is now getting acquainted with this platform and might be using it later for other events as well. take the opportunity to consider whether large-scale events are really what you need, or whether we are just doing them because they are what we have always done. Very important point. Think about this situation as an ex-novation opportunity to get rid of like routines and business as usual that might not have been ever as useful as we thought it to be. Apolitical have a really good guide on large-scale webinars, so that would be very helpful if you maybe find the link and post it in here, because then we can share the whole presentation with everyone. Also, please, everyone, feel free to add more ideas in this presentation later. And consider pre-recorded, edited content to start collaborative discussions to ensure compelling, concise presentation that limit issues related to bandwidth from live streams. So pre-recorded, for example, sharing videos, as I understand it, to kickstart discussions. Then we go on to the next slide, slide 31. Internal communications, how to skill up for digital work. This was the only slide where everybody liked to work with these post-its. It's also a way for you to just see how you like working with this kind of low-tech idea of resembling post-its online. So there are some great suggestions here. Have daily, weekly stand-ups so everyone knows what is happening in the team. Absolutely. So I know think tanks where they have like a half-an-hour coffee morning, so that everybody, you know, also has a bit of a structure to their days, even though they work from home, and just check in the morning to see what's on, what's important, what has to be done, and also how everyone is doing. Absolutely great advice. Live stream and video sharing, which platform is the best? YouTube, Facebook, direct embed code on website. I think that's a question regarding the tools that we will want to expand on and see what experiences people have. Have small prep one-on-one meetings with key leaders prior to decisions and bigger consultations. That's very helpful. We tried this over the past 2 weeks. Daniela shared her experiences with this prior to the European Council meeting, and this is very helpful. The challenge is just to get everyone on the same platform. So this is very similar to the daily or weekly stand-ups up here. Try to maintain traditions. For example, we have created a virtual publication meeting on Teams. We bring our G&Ts. Not sure what that means. Collaborative documents. Absolutely. For example, Google Docs are better than virtual meetings for discussions. So everybody can just look at them at the time that is most convenient for them. For example, if somebody has to look after their kids, then after their kids are in bed, they can go back to the Google Doc, and you don't work with different versions via email. So that's always very helpful, also in non-corona times. Break down large-scale events into intimate breakout sessions. I can only second that. I would have loved to actually break this down into even smaller sessions, so small groups could work on one template at a time. That's very, very nice, and also gives them a bit more of a team feel to a large group where you cannot see everybody. It's more of a personal experience. With Zoom breakouts, people can actually talk to each other and see each other. Schedule non-work breaks, for example, virtual teas where work conversation is banned. Absolutely. Use Slack, Teams for chit chat, what you're up to today, what didn't work, etc. We're doing a virtual pub quiz for our team, keep the team bonding going. That's a great idea. Actually, I have to share, I did a I don't know if anybody knows this, but a crime dinner, like a murder scene dinner for my birthday party on Zoom, actually last weekend. So that was a great experience with friends. I can only recommend this. Other people have played Mafia online through Zoom, so try this with your colleagues. Define which tools are used for what purpose. Very important. We will work on that, and I think I heard that also Soapbox is working on something similar. Maybe we can join forces here. Still do digital events only when necessary. Absolutely. We do not have to replace on offline routines that haven't proven necessary. You know, we can also use it to actually do less of this and more of what actually matters. Housekeeping rules for remote work. When do you chat, call, or email somebody to keep sane? Very important. For some organizations, organization-wide policies might work. Others might want to leave this to their teams. I found IDONETHIS quite useful to have a simple way of sharing what team members are doing with a single email. That sounds very interesting. Please add the link here so we can compile a list. Digital project planning, for example, Asana. Also, we've been working with to-do lists or planner in Microsoft Teams for doing project work. So that's also very, very helpful and doesn't use another platform if you're already working with Teams. Share a log document in which employees can journal every day how they feel before and after work to sustain psychological health, enable mindful attitude towards one's well-being, allow for ideas to come from within, organic innovation, ideas, and improvement. Okay, wow, this is a really great collection. And then somebody added some more ideas on slide 32. Tool monitors greatly help with keeping track of different windows, Zoom meetings, Google Docs, etc. So this is also related to the same topic of internal communications, how to scale up, and use dynamics wikis instead of static intranets because they allow decentralized editing. And they can preserve institutional knowledge and extend into the future. So, thanks a lot for this. We will. This was very, very fast, and we will make sure to not only share these slides, but as I said, also we will work on an article to actually summarize both our experience and all the good feedback and tools and ideas that you have brought into this. So we will also be very happy to have everyone still feed into these slides. You may also open up another slide to start a new topic on the different tools that you like to use. We will get back to you with the link and invite you to share some more. We would like to do a very short feedback round, but I'm just looking to Erica to see. Erica, do we have 10 more minutes to have a short closing round? Okay, great. Okay, we get another 10 minutes. That's perfect because I'm very curious to hear from you guys. So what did we do today? We did an introduction round and collected and saw that the current situation holds both opportunities and challenges for think tanks. We shared some lessons from both management and operational perspectives, how we as a very events heavy and offline heavy think tank in Germany dealt with the situation and got everything online. And we collected some very quick solutions, tips, and tools for how to go digital currently. And what I would like you to do is actually to do as in the beginning and the introduction round. Please join the video seats at the table or share in the chat, and I will write in here later. 3 things. So first, maybe takeaways. You don't have to answer all 3 questions, but takeaways and what is the next step for you tomorrow? Is there something that you would like to do differently now, or something that you would like to just try? Some inspiration that you took away from here that might work in your organization and that you would like to give a try, and also how the network here can help with going further, because we think that this will be more a marathon than a sprint. So we might be in this situation for a longer period of time, and such an international network or community of practice can be very helpful in these challenging times. So please share your takeaways, and I'm going to nominate Stephen, who's on video. Please, everyone who would like to join us on video, do it. Otherwise, share in a chat. But I think talking on video is always nicer. And then, Stephen, you can nominate the next person.
Okay. We were having a little bit of a discussion in the chat channel about some other aspects, some other challenges that arise one that resonated with a few people was that if you proliferate the number of channels you're using, pretty soon you're going to have some problems controlling the information in your organization and even accessing it and finding it. And I think that it's natural and healthy to experiment with a lot of different tools when you face a big challenge and you need to find solutions. But then you'll a little bit further down the line, I think there'll be a need to consolidate and try to understand how you can manage the information that's now dispersed across what may be a really large number of very isolated communications channels.
Mm-hmm. So what is that? Do you have a thing that you would like to see as your next step for tomorrow, and maybe also seeing how the network?
Well, the one thing I was going to suggest was that I think we've had a really excellent description of your organization's adaptation to the channels. There might be what will be also interesting would be to have the experiences of some organizations that started further back and had more ground to catch up, that weren't as well prepared as you were, because I think there'll be a lot of think tanks that will start from a position, especially in developing countries, of not being so ready digitally and facing bigger challenges and maybe some different challenges. So it will be interesting to try to encourage some other think tanks whose contexts were different to share their experiences as well, because we might learn more from those other contexts.
Right. Maybe Sonia, you are next.
Hi, thanks a lot to whole DGEP team. My main takeaway is how much good facilitation matters. I think you were really inspiring moderator today, showing how much clear instructions, tasks, time can make everyone participate. I also enjoyed very much the management perspective, and my main takeaway there is how much managers need to be in contact with staff, but also how much delegated authority and autonomy is important, and also the point of making this team that was to take off the burden from one person to disperse it throughout the organization and think just about the platforms and the way the work is done. So these are all great insights, and the next steps, I would love to learn more in the network also from Frauhaus, who has been more advanced in how they use the policy kitchen platform in changed in circumstances and the hackathon they mentioned. And I also propose as a topic for our network to discuss how these things could be applied in more closed political environment, where you have to be even more aware of what is the digital trace you're leaving behind. Thank you.
Hear us, Hans?
I can hear you.
Okay, now I can hear you. Okay. Would you like to share your next steps? And
Yes, I hope the audio works. I mean, my concern right now is the policy consulting that I do is more on a consulting kind of arrangement. So this is not classical think tank work, but I work also with think tanks, and I'm a little worried, like Stephen, that how the behavior switch will happen in some of those organizations. And I'm sure that doesn't need to be a concern for us here. In some ways, if we work within organizations, but I worry that in developing countries, they're still somehow trying to do business as normal. I've shared this event with several people, and I said you should be on that conference to figure out what goes on. But again, I realize maybe that's just natural selection. Yeah, but I think there's a bigger ecosystem that will need a lot of this information, and that should be here, and that isn't. So I found it incredibly useful. Thank you.
Who would like to join next? I think there's no one else, or I can see no one else on video. So maybe we just close this here, and please feel free to type your takeaways, everyone else, in the chat. We will share our slides with everyone, and also, as I said, we're working on an article to make this a bit more digestible in forms of a blog article. For everyone that will be hopefully helpful. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that we are going to offer and organize a web series on digital think tanking in times of COVID-19. It will be a weekly event, how to manage the transition. We will touch on different topics from virtual events, online meetings, facilitation and tech questions, internal communication, cybersecurity, responsible infographics, search engine optimization, so how to make sure your thorough analysis can be found in a time with heightened misinformation. This will start April 9th, so this is already next week, and we are very much looking forward to your topics and speaker recommendations. Please feel free to send them to me. My address is here in slide 36, which you just see, and feel free to reach out and let us know what would be helpful for you in this current situation, so we can get this up and running together with OneComms and Soapbox. And these will also be recorded, so you can join and review them later. Thank you very, very much for this session. It was very interesting, and first time also for us using this Hopin platform and navigating our way around the sessions mode. So thanks a lot. It was very interesting, even though not everybody had a chance to speak on video, audio. I hope that you still felt it was like interactive and you had a chance to bring in your perspective. Yeah, looking forward to continuing the discussion and exchange with all of you. Bye. Bye.